SBF's mother was a Stanford law professor, once wrote an article, Beyond Blame, and she said we have to move past this whole concept of personal responsibility. Okay, her words.
Oof.
We have to get past this concept of personal the limits of personal responsibility. The fact that we have gotten so little in return for our blame mongering at least opens up the possibility that people would be receptive to a new approach. The next time something goes terribly wrong, like your son going to jail for 100 years and stealing $8 billion, suppose that instead of immediately asking who is to blame, we were to ask, how can we fix this problem? Yes, Mom, how did you raise a son like this that stole $8 billion from people? So to me, this is multidimensional. I don't know his mother. I've never broke bread. I don't know who she is. If Mom is a Stanford law, that means this is a smart mom. And if he is able to convince this many people to give him this much money, and convinces guys like, I don't know if it's Shamat or Theo or one of these guys, that he raised all this money and they said, hey, we recommend you having a board. And he says, go F yourself. I don't need a board to tell me what I'm doing. Who the hell in the first place trusted giving this guy this much money without a board? Who? So for the people that are upset, I cannot believe I lost this much money for my client. Next time you're giving somebody to manage money for you, ask them, any reason why we're giving this guy at this age this much money and you don't have a single board seat? Let me get this straight. You guys don't have a single board seat. Yes, we don't have a single board. Who negotiated this deal? Who the hell is this guy? Has he done is he the modern day Steve Jobs with 3 other exits in the past that you're going to say, yeah, this guy we can depend on? Is he Elon Musk? No, he's just a regular guy. Okay, so the people who did that, you have to kind of give a little bit of blame to them for not, getting greedy. And by the way, this is a lot of smart people that were involved. We're not talking about regular people. But the fact that this is taking place, where this guy went from being the modern day, what did Kramer call them? He called him the modern day J.P. Morgan Chase. Do you remember this?
No, I didn't know
Kramer
that.
called him the modern day J.P. Morgan Chase. If you can quote that, it may be somebody else, but I think it was Kramer. And he was screaming off the top of his lungs, and all these people that got FTX money, that they're going to have to come back, and maybe that's going to show up again. But I don't really put a lot of blame on those guys. They're just getting sponsorship money. You either pick the money or you don't pick the money. You're picking the CEO. But it's pretty wild to see what's going on here. But the best news is a certain level of accountability for this to be taking place.
No doubt. Yeah, going back to the idea that they didn't even demand a board seat. I mean, this is really ultimately what the euphoria looked like. Now, I had never been through a market cycle of euphoria. I had no idea what the signs were. I mean, now obviously I'm familiar with it. When your shoe shine guy starts giving you stock tips, that's when it's time to sell. And it really did have that sense of like nobody wanted to miss out on the one grand slam that was going to come out of this. And that reading Going Infinite was utterly fascinating about like what he was really like, how awkward he was, and how people started reading that as like genius. And that, of course, he really was smart. It's not like he wasn't bright, but he was, yeah, I don't know how much of this ties to the idea of his mom and nobody's taking blame. I don't know. There's something very undisciplined. Like if I were just going to take it down to, do I think he's nefarious, or do I just think he believed he could do no wrong, believed he was the smartest guy in the room, which ended up being the punchline to Enron. I think the documentary is called The Smartest Guys in the Room. And it's like so my thesis, one thing I'm really banging a drum on now is just getting people to distrust themselves. Like I set my company up where anybody can tell me when they think I'm doing something wrong. I unfortunately am not smart enough to run this company where I'm going to make every decision and be right every time. And so I constantly need people being a checks and balance system, letting me know when they think I'm doing something stupid so that I'm not blinded. And it feels like when you have this messianic complex put together with somebody who really believes that they're the smartest person in the room, and who's going to tell them otherwise? Like, you guys don't know what I do, and look at all the success that I've had, and I'm a singular mind, and I'm going to be able to do this. And if you have those two things together, that really is how you go off the terrifying deep end.
3 things. One is WeWork. I don't know if you're following WeWork with what they're going through. In 2017, They were valued at $47 billion. You know how much SoftBank gave them in 2017? You know what they raised?
18 billion or something stupid.
$18.9 billion
Jesus.
they raised. They missed a $95 million interest payment. They're about to shut down WeWork, okay? Andy Fastow, who was the CFO of Enron, okay? One day, I'm in a Four Seasons in Dallas. I'm doing a business planning session. And once a quarter, I would go away. I'm at the hotel 20 miles away from my house, but I would have a room full of stickers, stuff on the board, and I'm just writing what we're going to be doing. So I go down, I'm swimming, then I go to the sauna. I'm sitting there. How you doing? How you doing? Good. What do you do? I'm this. Oh, no way. Yeah. How long you been in the financial industry? 28 years. Who are you with? Morgan Stanley, Dean Widow. Great. You know, I'm looking at a couple speakers to bring to my event. Who would you recommend? Oh, who I'm going to tell you, you're going to think I'm crazy. Who's that? Andy Fastow. Which Andy Fastow? The CFO of Enron. The CFO of Enron? Yes. Do you by any chance have his number? He says, if I give you his number, please don't tell him I gave you his number. I said, let me call this guy. I'll tell him I got the number from somewhere, but I won't give the name. I call Andy. Andy is paranoid. He doesn't know who I am.
Yeah.
3 years later, I bring Andy as a keynote speaker at Vault Conference last year. You know how I opened this up? I said, the reason why I brought Andy in is to help you guys not go to jail. Andy gets up, he opens it up this way. He says, in this year, the #1 CPA magazine of the year, I was the CFO of the year. He says, then the next thing I want to show you, this is my jail card.
Wow.
My jail ID card. 1 year, I'm the CFO of the year, running Enron with 100,000 employees. Next year, you know, I'm in jail. And they found a way to kind of scare his wife as well, and they kind of separated him, and he had to go do 6-8 years, whatever it was. Wow. Anyways, the moral of the story is this. Study very closely who you're in business with. Quibi raised billions of dollars and went out of business in no time. They were paying actors $100,000 a minute to do 12-minute movies. Do you remember those days with Kevin Hart and all that stuff, and Katzenberg and all these guys were involved in it? But if you see something coming in that even the brightest of the brightest of the brightest minds are getting involved in, ask some of the questions. Do we have a board seat? Who's in the ear of the CEO? Who's talking to the CEO? What are his values and principles? Does his mother believe in personal responsibility? What are we dealing with here? So ask more questions before you jump in with excitement because other people are getting involved.
Well, so here's another fascinating thing that I think we'll have more things to say on this topic later, but the idea that what you have are a set of ideas because they were effective altruists. And I didn't know anything about it until I read the book. But reading the book, it was like, okay, he was an effective altruist. He hired a bunch of effective altruists. Some of the people that helped them raise money were effective altruists. And so there was this mindset, and I won't be able to do effective altruism justice enough, but it's basically what is the, I think they take a utilitarian approach. So what's the best good that can be done with this? So what's the most good you can do with your life? What's the most good you can do with the money? And so in trying, it's so interesting because this ties into your idea of selfish versus selfless. And so they really believed that they were the most selfless people around and that they were just trying to run everything through an equation of like, what's the greatest number of good that this can go off and do? And in some weird way, it breaks. And so even though it really does sound awesome, like you're really saying, I'm not going to live a lavish life. I'm going to give all this money away in all these different ways. And now I'm just really hypothesizing here. This wasn't in the book, but as I was reading the book, I kept getting this feeling that I think part of what ended up happening is the algorithm running in the back of your mind is as long as these dollars go do the most good, it doesn't matter sort of where they end up. And so he had largely a political agenda and was just like, oh, these dollars will be best spent there. Not thinking like, well, we only have so many dollars that we can spend and there are, or should be, capital restrictions. You can't mix funds, right? That all got way farther back, got pushed way farther back into the recesses of his mind versus what's the highest good in his mind that this money can be put towards. Now, again, I'm super speculating. He didn't say any of that. I don't know that, but that's how it felt reading the book.
And these are the results. These are the results that we experience now. For me, a basic red flag. Now, earlier we were talking, you and I, if I ask you for $10 million, I say I'm going to take $5 million off the table. You don't get any board seats, and I'm going to pay myself $500,000 here. All the red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. Versus, no, here's where it's going to go. This is what we're going to be doing. How do you not have, when you're given that kind of money, how do you not have a board seat and accountability to hold a young entrepreneur CEO accountable? How?
I can answer that question.
Tell
So you are in a position where you have a lot of capital, because this is a time where capital is just flying everywhere. So you have a ton of capital that you have to deploy. You start hearing of this wonderkind who it just has this crazy investing strategy where he's arbitraging in South Korea, and it all sounds absolutely brilliant. And he is the next big thing. He's an effective altruist. He's not even doing it to get wealthy. He'll show up in these meetings in like cargo shorts and no shoes,
Sitting
not
next to
having
Clinton.
babe. Yeah. And so all of a sudden it's like, okay, is he crazy or is he a crazy genius? And so the narrative starts swinging to he's a crazy genius. And so, yes, he shows up, and yes, he's going to play video games while he's on the call with you, but that's because his brain works so fast that he has basically he's able to fractal his mind and do the video game over here. And so as that becomes the narrative, people are buying the story. And so people will buy the best story. To quote Morgan Housel again, Morgan says it's never the right data point. It's not even the right answer. It's the best story that's going to win. And so the story they were telling about this guy, because I remember I was really on the periphery of hearing about him. And it was like, he was the good guy. He was the guy that had all the right incentives, all the right reasons, was just doing good with his money, wasn't trying to be rich, didn't live a lavish life, which wasn't entirely true. But the story was there. And when the story is there, everyone's euphoric, number only go up. You've got a ton of capital you have to deploy. You find a once in a generation genius. He's being validated on stages with Bill Clinton and whoever. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, the cost of being able to get in on this is that we're not going to get a board seat.
Here's a crazy thing though. The question is he going to get pardoned? The question is he going to be able to get released? The question is, how many people did he give money to that are afraid if he leaks information of what happened, that maybe campaign funding could come out? Maybe he has more control over other people. Is he kind of a modern day Epstein? Not the kid stuff, but more how he held people hostage with money information on the back end. The next thing is going to be who's going to turn on him that took money from him and how they're going to react. Because if things start getting weird, it tells you he's got a lot of intel on some very powerful politicians in America.
Yeah. Yeah. So we only have to wait a few days for at least sentencing, and then we'll see beyond that.
If you like that clip, check out another powerful clip right here, and I'll see you there.